Back in August of 2019, I saw a video by Bob the Science Guy on the Analemma, which is this one right here. And I decided to do something similar, but I wanted to expand on the observations that I was doing beyond just taking a picture every hour and stacking them up like the guy did in the thumbnail that was used for this video. I wanted to use one project to work out a number of other projects. So for example, one idea I had was if you know exactly where the camera is pointing and the exact time and date, can you determine the direction of any celestial object and what is the degree of accuracy? If you map the movement of the stars in the camera, is it possible to prove the shape of the Earth? So I had a number of projects that I wanted to do, and I figured I was going to get a few cameras and set them up for my own experimentation. And I didn't want just one camera pointing in one direction. I wanted two of them. The first one I wanted was to point at the sun, obviously, pretty much as it's shown here, so that the cycle of the sun throughout the seasons would remain in frame. And I wanted to point the other one at Polaris to catch the rotation of the stars from the north point of view. And I had a number of requirements to do that. I had to get some relatively cheap cameras. They had to be readily available. They obviously had to be outdoor cameras because I was going to be taking pictures of the sun, stars, and the moon. And I also needed something that was fairly maintenance free and that could run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I did not want to have to go out and swap memory cards or whatever, and I also had to have full control of the data. So I could not rely on any camera whatsoever that was oriented towards a cloud service. And a lot of these cameras, a lot of these security cameras, rely on setting up a cloud account, and then it tends to want to put it out up to the cloud, and then you have to use some special software or use their website to be able to download them again onto your computer. So I didn't want any of that. I wanted to have full control of the data. So I ended up going to a local computer and electronics store, and I found these cameras. So this camera tended to have most of the requirements that I needed. It was an IP-based camera. It derived its power from a power over Ethernet switch. And just as important, it also had the ONVIF protocol, which means that it would just go on to a network. I was mindful of security whenever I set it up so that it couldn't access my home network, etc., but that I could access the cameras from my home network, all that other stuff. One of the drawbacks of this particular camera that you can't see in the picture is that there's a pivot right about here, and there are kind of like teeth that mesh, so it can only go in certain specific increments. And that meant that I was not able to place the camera at the exact position that I wanted. The south-facing camera, I got it mostly in about the right direction. I got it about 47 degrees altitude. I was really hoping to get it at about 44 degrees. But even then, it wouldn't have helped much because I would have seen the bottom of the fence line between me and my neighbor. And so I just decided to angle it up a little bit higher than I wanted. The other one I pointed in the northerly direction, mainly to catch as much sky as possible. So the first day that I had this set up was August 26th of 2019. Around this time was pretty much the date that I had purchased these cameras. And over time, I discovered a few interesting quirks. One of them was that there was a bit of a misconfiguration in the network time protocol setting, and it could not update its time automatically, so the time started to drift. I also noticed that the time on my computer was off by a couple of minutes as well for probably about 3 or 4 months. So that would have an impact on the actual time. And I ended up using the time on the computer as the more authoritative timestamp. So every image has the time and the date encoded, and there's only one small glitch, which I didn't take into account, which was the transition between daylight saving time and standard time. So I ended up losing an hour of images in the fall whenever it switched from daylight to standard time. I also spent the better part of the first couple of weeks trying to set up the orientation of the camera. So you can see the first few days the trees over here, and you don't see the corner of the house. And at some point after a few days, I realized that the camera might not be pointing in the correct direction. So this is probably about after a week or so, I started to adjust the position of the camera, and it took me a couple of days. Somewhere around here, I realized that I used a Theodolite app and kind of used the tree line here to see what the vertical field of view was, and it came up to about 45 degrees according to the app. So that was another reason why not only did I move it down, but I also rotated the camera clockwise slightly. And the idea was that I wanted to catch a bit of the sun at the summer solstice, and to catch a bit of the sun in the winter solstice. And in retrospect, I think maybe I should have rotated it in the other direction so that I could catch the sun over here instead of through the trees in the dead of winter. But anyways, those are lessons learned. The first day that I would consider having had the camera placed in a fixed position would have been September 8th of 2019. The camera has stayed in that position ever since. So I plan to make some time-lapse videos of a day, maybe a week. I also have another one that I want to show the analemma of the sun by taking the same image like this here at the same time every day for the entire year. So you can see that the sun is starting to come down like this here. So there's one video that I'm looking to put out that shows the analemma of the sun throughout the entire year. The north-facing camera was a little bit different. This one here was giving me a lot of problems. It wasn't exactly waterproof, and every time it would rain, water would get inside and fog the glass up, and it would take a day or two for the moisture to clear so that I could actually see anything again. And at one point in the dead of winter, snow had kind of gotten into one of the connectors, and the camera pretty much died for a few days. I ultimately had to bring it inside, warm it back up again. Whenever I was when I was resealing my deck or clearing the snow in the winter, I think I bumped the camera a few times. So the orientation of the camera has shifted positions throughout the year. So this one here is not exactly in the same position as it was when I started, but it's mostly in this direction. And so Polaris is right about here. And I'm looking a little bit more towards the west. So my azimuth is probably about 340 some degrees at this point. Maybe 350, 348 or so. My altitude is not quite at my latitude, but this one will also be interesting to talk about in some coming up videos. So that's basically my setup. And this is going to be an introduction video to a series of other videos that I'm going to be making shortly. My 1 year project anniversary has pretty much come and gone for me, and now I'm going to make some videos to document the process along the way. So I hope you guys enjoy this, and if you do, just let me know, give me a thumbs up, put a comment below, whatever, you know what to do. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you hopefully in another video soon enough. Bye for now.